Good morning, boys and girls. Let's take a look here. We are now looking at Module 1, Lesson 6, and our objective for Lesson 6 was to compare decimal fractions to thousandths or to the thousandths using like units and express comparisons with our greater than, less than, or equal to sign. So looking at this here, when we look at number 1, first thing we need to do is say, okay, well, if we're comparing like units, we know that we have the highest unit for both our numbers. Our first number is 16 and 45 hundredths. Next, we have 16 and 454 thousandths. So we look at our tens place, we see they both have a 1, so we can't compare that. We look at our ones place, we see they both have a 6. They're the same, we can't compare the numbers by those digits. We look at our 4 in our tenths place. We know that we can't compare it by the 4 in the tenths place because they both have 4 in the tenths place. Then we look at our 5 in our hundredths place. We can't compare there because they both have 5 in the hundredths. Now, if you notice, this second number has a 4 in the thousands place, whereas this first number has nothing in the thousands place. So what we can do is we can annex our 0 in our thousands place for this first number. Now we can compare. Well, we say we know that thousands to thousands, when we do the comparison, we know that 4 is greater than 0. 4 thousandths is greater than 0 thousandths, so therefore 16 and 454 thousandths is greater than 16 and 450 thousandths, or 450 thousandths could be renamed as 45 hundredths, and vice versa. So we know we're going to use our less than symbol. 16 and 45 hundredths is less than 16 and 454 thousandths. Same thing here. These are going to be equal because we have a 3 in our hundredths place. So therefore, this number is also 83 hundredths, the same as our fraction here. So our decimal and our fraction are both set as 83 hundredths. Same thing for C. We have 205 what? 205 thousandths. And here we have a 5 in our thousandths place. This would also be 205 thousandths. All right, let's look at D. If we look at D, we notice that our tens, most of our tens places have a 9. Both of our ones place have a 5. But when we compare our tenths place, we have a 5 in the tenths place on our right side and a 0 on our tenths place on our left side. So we said that the sign is always going to be open to the bigger number. So I would read this as 95 and 45 thousandths is less than 95 and 545 thousandths. All right. So just based off of the fact that my tenths place, when I'm comparing like units, my tenths place is greater on this side, therefore this number is going to be greater. All right. So remember, we read numbers from left to right, and that's how we compare them from the furthest place value unit that has value on the left over to the right. So let's look here. We have hundreds, no th, both have 4 in the hundreds. Tens, no th, both have 1 in the hundreds, in the tens. In the ones place, both have 9 in the ones. Now we have our first difference in the tenths THS. We have a 1 in the tenths there. We have a 0 in the tenths here. We know that this 1 is greater than the 0. The 1/10 is greater than 0/10. Even though this looks like 10 after my decimal here, and this looks like 99 after my decimal here. Remember, we talked about making sure they have the same amount of digits. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 digits here. I only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 digits here. So if I added my 6th digit and I put that 0 in there, now it'll look more like a fair comparison. I have 100 after my decimal now, and I have 99 after my decimal here. So this could be read as 419 and 100 thousandths is greater than 419 and 99 thousandths. All right, picking up the pace here. These two are going to be equal 5 ones and 8 tenths is the same thing as 58 tenths. Remember, I write the whole number out as 58, and I say, well, 58 what? Tenths. That 8 has to be in the tenths place. So therefore, my decimal is going to be there. So looking at G, we said 36 and 9 thousandths. So we have 36, decimal says and we have 9 in the thousandths place. So now we have 4 tens. 4 has to be in the tens place. So which one is more? We know we look at our tens place. I have a 3 in the tens place here, and I have a 4 in the tens place here. So therefore, this is going to be the less than sign is going to be what I'm going to use, because 36 and 9 thousandths is less than 40 or 4 tenths. All right, moving right along. H, we have 104 and 12 hundredths. On this side, we have 104 and 2, my thousandths place, 2 thousandths. So we know this is going to be greater than sign, because 104 and 12 thousandths is greater than 104 and 12 hundredths. That 2 is in the hundredths place, not the thousandths place, is greater than 104 and 2 thousandths. If we compare, they both have the same digits in the hundreds, tens, and ones place. When we get to our tenths place, that's where we make our comparison. This one is greater, so therefore the sign is going to be facing that greater number. All right, I, we have 158 thousandths. So we have 158, and we say 158 what? Thousandths. So this 8 has to be in the thousandths place, putting this 5 in the hundredths place, 1 in the tenths place, so my decimal is going to be there. All right, let's see. Making my comparison, they both have 0, both numbers have 0 in the ones place. But when I come to my tenths place, I see that my 58 hundredths has a 5 in the tenths place, so that's going to be the less than sign. The mouth of the sign is always open towards the greater number, but we read it as 158 thousandths is less than 58 hundredths. All right, last but not least on this page, I'll put that sign in first. I know I have 703 and 5 hundredths. This is 703 and 5 thousandths. If I put out to my thousandths place, remember this number only has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 digits, or 5 place value units are filled. This has 6. If I put in my last place value unit that's not filled, my thousandths place, it'll look like this. It's a lot easier when we put these numbers on the number line. We'll look at that for number 3. So once again, 703 and 5 thousandths is less than 703 and 5 hundredths, or 5, we can call this 5 hundredths, 50 thousandths. All right, let's go ahead and look at the next one. So number 2 asks us to arrange the numbers in increasing order. So you have to know that increasing means that they're going up. So that means I want the smallest number first, then I'm going to have the second smallest number, and the third smallest number, and finally the largest number. All right, so I noticed that they all have 8 in their ones place. Instead of putting these, well, we can list them on a quick place value chart. So they have 1, 2, 3 place value units there. 1, 2, 3, 4 place value units here. So I know I need at least 4 place value units. So let's go ahead and put that in. Here's where my decimal is going to be there. I'll put it there. And in class, we did them in different colors. So let's just draw them in different colors so it'll be a little bit easier to identify the number. I can just call it out by its color instead of saying the actual number. Be a little quicker here. So I have my red number, my orange number, and my green number. And we'll make the last one black, and my black number here. So if you notice, my red number, 8 and 8 hundredths, only has 3 place value units. It has ones, tenths, hundredths, but no thousandths. Same thing with my green number, 8 and 9 hundredths. So I'm going to annex my zeros for those two just so that they have the same amount of digits as the other two numbers. So by adding that zero, I didn't change the number. I changed the name, the way we're going to, the name of the number, but I didn't change the value of the number. So it's still the same, 808, 8 and 8 hundredths, 8 wholes or 8 ones, and 8 hundredths is equal to 8 and 80 thousandths. So that's the same amount. I just annexed the zero or added a zero in here. So now let's go ahead and look. We can't compare them by the ones because they all have 8 in the ones. We can't compare them by the tenths because they all have 0 in the tenths. So we're going to make our first comparison based off of our hundredths. And remember, we're trying to go from the smallest number up. So we want to increase. So the smallest number here would be my black number, which is 8 and 8 thousandths. I'm going to write that in here, 8 and 8 thousandths, because it has a 0 in the hundredths place. So I'm going to cross that off my list. I'm done now. Now, looking at where I'm going to make my comparison again, I know that the next smallest number is going to have to be either my red number or my orange number because they both have 8 in the hundredths place. So let's take a look here. Because they have 8, both have 8 in the hundredths place, I'm going to compare them by the thousandths. So now I'll go over and say, well, which one of these two has the smallest thousandths? Smallest digit in the thousandths. All right, so I can see that it's clearly my top number. 8 and 8 hundredths, or 8 and 80 thousandths, has a 0 in the thousandths place, where 8 and 81 thousandths has a 1 in the thousandths place. So I'm going to write my second smallest number in, 8 and 8. Annex that 0. 8 and 8 hundredths is also equal to 8 and 8. 8 and 80 thousandths. So we're going to keep that. And then our next number, because these two numbers, let's cross out our 8 and 8 hundredths, or 8 and 80 thousandths. Because these two numbers, my orange and my green number, have different numbers in my hundredths place, I can make that comparison and say, well, as I go from left to right, they have the same in the ones, same in the tenths. The difference is in the thousands, the hundredths place here this time. It was a thousandths place for my orange and my red, but for my when I'm comparing my orange and my green, I see the difference here. I know that the 8 is smaller than my 9, so therefore this number is going to be third. I'm going to put it in here, 8 and 81 thousandths, which is going to tell us that finally our last number, or our largest number, is going to be our green number, which is 8 and 90 thousandths. And if you notice, if we're just comparing by the last two digits, this is 8 thousandths, this is 80 thousandths, this is 81 thousandths, and this is 90 thousandths. Because my 8 and 0 tenths are all the same, 8 and 0 tenths, 8 and 0 tenths, 8 and 0 tenths, 8 and 0 tenths, I don't need to compare by the first two digits. I'm just comparing by the last two digits. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at this next one. So we have each number has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 digits now. So we're going to make a place value chart. And that place value chart is going to have our 5 digits in. Part of my place value chart. Doesn't have to be super neat. Just want to make sure we can get our numbers on there. All right, so in the same fashion, I'm going to put my 14 and 204 thousandths. Then I have 14 and 2 tenths, which is also equal to 200 thousandths. Finally, final two, I have 14 and 24 hundredths, which is also equal to 14 and 240 thousandths. And last but not least, 14 and 21 hundredths, which is also equal to 14 and 210 thousandths. So if you notice, they all have 1 in the tens place, they all have 4 in the ones place, they all have 2 in the tenths place. So I'm looking at my hundredths place to make my first comparisons, right? So I can see that the first two, my green number and my red number, both have 0 in the hundredths place. So I know they're going to be the lowest of the two. These are going to be my lowest two. This is going to be my third lowest, and this is going to be my largest, just based off of my hundredths place. Now I have to say, well, of these two that have 0 in the hundredths place, which one has the smallest thousands? So I'll go over to my thousands place. I know it's going to be this one. So this is my smallest number. I'll block that off. But my smallest number is going to be that red number, which is 14 and 2 tens, or 14 and 200 thousandths. Next is going to be my other number that had a 0 in the hundredths place, which is my 14 and 204 thousandths. Finally, the final number that I'm going to have to look at to finish up, I know one has to be third place, and whenever one is in third place, the last one is going to be in fourth place. That's why I said finally, even though I have two numbers. So let's go ahead and look here. I know that because my black number has a 1 and my orange number has a 4 in the hundredths place, my black number, which is 14 and 210 thousandths, is going to be in third place, leaving 14 and 240 thousandths to be in the final place. So once again, we made our comparison based off of the last two digits. So let's underline those last two digits here. I had 0 thousandths, I had 4 thousandths, 10 thousandths, and 40 thousandths. The reason why I'm just focused on those two digits because that's where we made our comparison. Remember, the first three digits were all the same. This is, I can say this a couple ways. I can say 14 and 2 tenths, or I can say 142 tenths. Same thing. I had 142 tenths here. 142 tenths is equal to 14 and 2 tenths. 14 and 2 tenths. 14 and 2 tenths. So because those numbers that are in my rectangles are all the same, 14 and 2 tenths, I'm making a comparison based off of those last two digits. That's why we went over to our hundredths place to start. All right. Now, looking at this here, we have to do the same thing. Now we're going to be decreasing. I'm going to pick up the speed here. We're going to be decreasing. I'm going to count my digits. 1, 2, 3, 4. I know I have to go out to at least 4 digits because my first number has 4. The other one has, my second number has 3. Third number has 2. Fourth number has 4 again. So I'm going to make my quick place value chart. It has to have 4 digits or 4 place value slots so I can put the 4 digits in the number. There we go. I know that my ones place is going to be first. Let's write that number in. 8 and 508 thousandths. And I have 8 and 58 hundredths. I'm going to add my 0 in to make that 580 thousandths. Then I have 7 and 5 tenths, which is also equal to 7 and 500 thousandths. Finally, I have 7 and 58 thousandths. All right, so making that comparison, I'm going to notice that in my ones place, I have 2 sevens here. So I know that's going to be, we want to decrease. So we want to say we're going from the highest number down. So don't want to look at my sevens. I have 2 sevens and 2 eights. I know one of these two numbers is going to be first. So now I have to say, well, okay, I have 8 in my ones place, so I can't make my comparison there. 5 in my tenths place, can't make my comparison there. And I have a 0. This is where I'm going to make my first comparison. I have a 0, and then I have an 8 in my hundreds place. I'm looking for the greatest number, so I know that's going to be my red number, which is 8 and 580 thousandths. I automatically know, since that's my my greatest number, my second greatest number is going to be the other number that has an 8 in the ones place. That's my orange number. Because 8 is greater than both of those 7 ones. 8 ones is greater than 7 ones. So therefore I have 8 and 508 thousandths. Next, I have two numbers that both have 7 in the ones place. I know that I'm going to make the comparison in my tenths place here. So I'm saying which one is greater, my 5 tenths or my 0 tenths. I know it's going to be my one that has a 5 tenths. So I have 7 and 500 thousandths, which means lastly, I'm going to have 7 and 58 thousandths as my smallest number. So remember, it's decreasing means it's going from the greatest number down. All right, the final one here. Let's go ahead and see if we can do this. Now remember, you're supposed to be pausing this video to see if you can do this on your own. Let's go ahead and put this. We're going to make a larger place value chart here because we need at least 6 place value units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines will give me 6 parts. Let's go ahead and get these in. All right, so once we have our 3 numbers in here, our 4 numbers in on our place value chart, we can start comparing. I can't compare by hundreds because they all have 4. Can't compare by tenths, they all have 3. Can't compare by ones, they all have 9. So my first comparison is going to be my tenths. So I notice here automatically that, remember, I want to decrease in order from greatest to smallest, greatest to least. So I know that my 6 is the largest number in my tenths place. So my first number is going to be my 439 and 612 thousandths. My second number is going to be one of the 2 numbers that has a 2 in the tenths place. So that means I automatically know that this is going to be my smallest number. My red number is going to be my smallest number. So now I have to determine what's my second and my third largest. So what's going to come next? I look at my 2 in my tenths place and say, okay, now I have to compare what's in the hundredths place. Because I have a 6 in my hundredths place in my orange number, I can go ahead and write that next because I know that's going to be the second largest number. All right. Now, because I did that, I automatically know without even doing any more comparison. I already compared my tenths. I already know that my green number is going to be next because it has a 2 in the tenths, which is larger than my 1 in my tenths and red number. So my green number is going to be next. A little bit smaller, just so I can fit them both in. And then finally, my red number. All right. So let's take a look here. I made my comparisons based off of my last 3 digits because my first 3 digits were all the same. So I couldn't compare with those first 3 digits or my wholes, my 439 wholes, I couldn't compare. So I had to make my comparison based off of my parts of a whole or my decimal fractions, which are underlined in red there. All right. Hopefully this helped. Please, 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 if you have any questions, ask. We will get started right away with our quiz. So make sure you review this homework and I will see you later. Keep learning.